Torren Martyn has almost inadvertently become one of the more influential surfers of the past decade, and he's done so without chasing any competitive tour success. From my humble perspective, it's just his relatability that surf fans have so connected with, and delusional as we may be to think that we can surf like Torren, his approach at least looks much more similar to an average surfer's approach than does Gabriel Medina's or Italo Ferreira's. And to this point, he's changed how people think about their equipment. During the 2010s, most high-level surfing centered around shortboard shredding. And then Torren came along and he showed what refined twin fins and mid-lengths could do, and that they could be ridden aggressively and elegantly in powerful and critical surf without looking retro or novelty driven. He, however, did not become this popular through his own individual moxie. I can point to 3 tight partnerships and collaborations that have been crucial in his story. Simon Jones, his surfboard shaper, Neat Essentials, the wetsuit and clothing brand that supports him, and then Iska Folkwell, his best friend and filmmaker. All 4 have worked together in equal parts to help achieve their mutual ambition to explore great surf around the globe. These efforts have coalesced into a series of now iconic surf films that share a theme of slow surf travel with an emphasis on really connecting to the local people, culture, and place. Their latest project was just released on Neat Essentials' YouTube channel and is already receiving rave reviews. Entitled Southern Edge, the 76-minute film follows Torren and Iska as they attempt to circumnavigate Tasmania in 2 18-foot sailing kayaks on a quest to surf remote waves. This film really actually kind of works as a sequel to the 2023 film Calypte, where Torren and his partner Ayana borrowed a 35-foot sailboat and then sailed it from Thailand to eastern Indonesia while learning how to sail, by the way. Really great film if you haven't seen it. So we're going to get into all of that today, but before we do, of course, just a quick reminder that Surf Splendor is made possible through my own long-standing partnerships and friendships with Veyer Watches, the Surfrider Foundation, and Real Water Sports. Surfrider.org is where you go to become a member because the ocean needs more friends. I also host their Surfrider podcast, which just dropped a new episode this week. So search for the Surfrider podcast here on YouTube, and then, of course, click subscribe. Veyer Watches makes durable, ocean-ready, American-assembled watches. I have been wearing mine since 2019. Come into focus here. And I'll save you 15% by going through veyerwatches.com/surfsplendor. And then lastly, realwatersports.com for any and all of your water sport needs, from surfboards to foil gear to clothing, helmets, wetsuits, towels, sunblock, leashes, traction. You can find it all at realwatersports.com. Okay, thank you. Without further ado, my name is David Scales for Surf Splendor, and I really hope that you enjoy my reconnecting with an old friend, Torren Martyn.
Surf Splendor.
Yeah. Last we spoke, you had a newborn, so she must be around 3 by now?
She's 2 and a bit.
Okay.
Yep. Growing up too quick, just an absolute ball of positive energy and all dad life and loving it and little family. It's
what was the total time that you were away from her on this trip that the film documents?
I spent about 3 or 4 months away from my girls last year, chipping away at this project. It was a big one for sure. It was a big year.
How rough was that?
There were a few challenges with it for sure. Obviously miss them a lot being away from them, and then, having, moved and living in a new place, that came with its challenges as well. And then, the mental and physical challenge of the nature of the trip. But yeah, it was definitely a dynamic kind of year. And it was a big one in a lot of ways.
Yeah. I mean, at that age, she grows so much in 3 to 4 months. She probably looked entirely different when you got back to her.
I know, even in, week to week. They're
Yeah.
just evolving and changing so much. It's just so incredible watching them grow and learn. They're like little sponges, aren't they? And you just sort of rubbing your eyes and watching them change in front of you. And it's just wild.
It is wild. We'll get into Southern Edge in just a minute, but where's the boat Calypte right now?
That is kind of a sad story.
No.
So, I know, right? Like like a bit of my heart sort of breaks when I think about Calypte, because we obviously had that incredible year on her. And she'd been in my family for quite a while before that. And I, like when we sold Calypte to a fellow that was living in Singapore and based out of Dili in Timor. And we delivered the boat there, and he had, like everyone had hopes and dreams. And I just sort of slowly over the last couple of years, or, semi-regularly get these little updates of Calypte slowly withering away. The first one was the tender on the beach, half deflated. The next time it was upside down and the engine had been taken off it. And then, a couple of videos and photos of Calypte on a mooring, and slowly, each sort of photo or update I get, because the port that she was in is a very, it's like a common sort of check in and check out of Indonesia, and a lot of people sort of stop there along their way in their travels. So I just get these little updates of people going, look, it's Calypte, but she's not looking too good. And I don't know, we really hoped that a, young girl or guy or couple, would take her on many, many more adventures. And she just gave us so much too. So it just felt, it's, there's still potentially a lot of life left in her, but, it takes a lot of work to maintain a boat, especially when you're living on it, let alone if it's been sitting in the tropics for a few years.
Okay. So it's just a reflection of neglect, probably?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Bummer.
Like, she's still in one piece, but I've heard the guy that bought it off us, he gave it back to the local community there because the engine wasn't working. And then friends peeped through the windows and saw that there was water in the hull and the engine had been taken out. Sounds like there's a lot of work ahead to get her back.
Bummer.
Yeah.
Can you believe that film has 2.7 million views?
That's wild, isn't it? Yeah.
Is that the most views of any of your guys' projects?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. It's got to be right up there. For sure, I think. Yeah.
That's kind of amazing. Have any opportunities presented themselves from the success of that film?
Yeah, I mean, like, we, with Need Essentials, we are, constantly working on films and the next film, and we have such a great sort of working relationship, Iska and I, and Need, and the films are always sort of evolving, and it's I mean, I don't know exactly what you mean by opportunities come from the film, but certainly a lot of great conversations and with other sailors and filmmakers, and I guess a lot of opportunities in ways.
I'm thinking about like professional opportunities. Like, it's great that these all live on YouTube because we can watch them anytime we want, but I would think somebody like Netflix might approach and ask to purchase.
Yeah, it's interesting. I haven't really dove into that space. I think, with Need, we like to keep the films independent.
Sure.
And, it's, as you know, like Iska and I have been working with Need for years now, and it's such a great setup. They choose to invest in us and our adventures and, the filmmaking, and we all, symbiotically get to make these films together with the artists and musicians involved.
Yeah.
So I think, once you start going and reaching out to other platforms and distributors and producers or branching out, it kind of can slip away of that creative control and For us, it's our passion, and like in a way, it kind of chronicles these journeys and parts of our life. And we have a lot of freedom and flexibility with need, and that they enable these trips for us. So it's it's I think potentially it's an interesting different sort of space to think about how that would go and how it would be received, and going down a different sort of avenue. But for us, it's about keeping them independent, and we just sort of get to work so closely with need and create these films together in-house as well. So it's it works well for us at the moment. But things of course sort of evolve, and there might be opportunities down the track and things sort of come up. But there's always sort of conversations happening, and how the films can grow and evolve, and the storytelling involved. It's all a learning process. But we're really happy with how the films sort of come together. And I think through the process of doing this over a long time, they slowly evolve over time. As well as as much as the story, but as also the production quality and value. And Need essentially has been nothing but supportive of Iska and I. And it's much bigger than Iska and I as well. There's a whole team that are behind it that make this all come together. So it's a pretty sweet setup as it is.
Well, it's remarkable that you guys have all individually and collectively maintained the same true north from a decade ago, and that you haven't pursued other opportunities. You guys have all kind of stayed on the same page. The band is still together, and then also what I like about it is it's in stark contrast to the way that all other internet content machines work. Because everybody else, even if they started in this, collect footage, make one film every 2 years kind of an idea, they've all gotten away from that, and they are putting out clips every single day. And so I like seeing that not only are you guys still true to that, but that it's having success. That it is, once the film gets released, it wins the awards and it gets 2.7 million views and all that sort of thing, because I think we still value it as viewers.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think, the last handful of years or more, there's completely different sort of space held, in the film industry, and then also the attention span, and it's working for a lot of people, and us too. We really value quality in the production. Iska puts in hundreds, thousands of hours into the films. We don't try and just spit them out. They're very considered, personal pieces, and we are very fortunate in the situation, as creatives and filmmakers, that we have time there to do something and put something out that we're really proud of, and that is timeless as well, and intentional, and it's not just a turnover. We're in a really unique position in that sense, and needs to thank for that. Essentially, it's needs to become a production company, and it is unique in the space. We don't want advertising on the films. They choose to invest in these as it's this sort of, I said it before, but this great sort of symbiotic relationship where during the trips we can also we're basically able to test and refine the products and stuff we're using and wearing, the gear that comes on the trips. It's like from I guess in a way it kind of started Iska and I kind of wanting to just enable a bit of travel, and a film was a way of doing that. And then as the team and the relationship and everything evolved with need. It's become this much greater sort of body and journey for all of us, from the artists and musicians involved in the films to, being able to release these films, travel slowly, get to experience culture and place slowly, and then when we make these films, we're able to tour them, raise money for charities, give back to the places and people that we travel through as well. So for that, it takes a lot of time, and it's this great process. It's really rewarding as well in a lot of ways. And then, for me personally, it's kind of gets to chronicle a bit of my life. It becomes a very personal sort of journey as well, and the lessons and everything that comes with that. So,
segueing to the film, what was behind your move to Tasmania?
Ayana and I had been we were traveling around Australia 5 or 6 years ago, and we'd booked the ferry over to Tasmania for a couple of weeks. And we got there and fell in love with it. The natural beauty there, the place is just spectacular. There's a really great rootsy local community of surfers and non-surfers. And we just sort of started for a few weeks, turned into 4 or 5 months. And then when we left, we kind of had to drag ourselves away, and we just sort of couldn't. Yeah, it was just a place that we felt like we really wanted to spend more time. And so we moved down to Tasmania at the end of 24. Got a little bit of land there and pitched a tent for 3 or 4 months and started sort of has a little shed on the property. So we sort of started making that more habitable, and that's become our little nest there and our little base camp. So it's like I said, Tasmania is just full of its natural beauty. It's raw and wild. It's this really special. It feels like you're sort of going back in time there. In a way of, we have family in different parts of the world. Ayana's family is over in Santa Barbara, so we get to spend a lot of time in there. And then my family's up in Byron Bay. So that's always home. But Tassie just feels like, just a special place to be, to raise a family as well that's close to nature and raw and wild and not, I would say the living is challenging down there. Yeah. It's a harsh environment, but it makes you feel alive, and it gives you perspective on the rest of the world as well in a really positive way. And it's a nice, it's nice to leave, and it's really nice to come back as well, which is what I love about it. And like I mentioned, the people down there's such a great surf community, and a lot of, really positive environmental sort of rootsy movements. It just feels real.
Very cool. What was the premise for this trip and the film?
So after Calypte, Ayana fell pregnant with Naya in the last few months of Calypte, and we moved back to Byron and sort of came home to Byron and set up there, and that's where Naya was born. And in that time, I'd acquired a little sailing Trimaran, just to kind of scratch that sailing itch. And at the time, we were living with Dave and Lauren and their little boy Minnow on the land there, and Dave and I were always sort of sharing sailing dreams. We started building that little boat. And I just got so buzzed and carried away with the idea of small adventure travels on like a light boat. And these little boats would just seem so genius and fitting. And at the time, we were sort of in transition of moving, and it just felt really fitting and such a really great way to connect with Tasmania. It started as when I first thought, shit, I wonder if you could sail this little boat around Well, it started with a trip down the coast, an hour, and overnight thinking, I'll load my, tent and sleeping bag and board and, some water and food on the boat and go down the coast. And then that happened and it was great. And the boats were just so fun to sail. I thought you could probably sail a little bit further on these. And then, the idea of sailing, trying to, do a circumnavigation at Tasmania kind of popped into my mind, and I floated it around with family and friends and kind of got, it sort of started sounding a little crazy and stupid when I said it out loud, like on a little plastic kayak around Tasmania. It just sort of, but the idea grew on me, and Iska was really keen, and, Need was keen to back it, and help support it in any which way they could. So it kind of fit in with the move that we were doing. I thought it was going to be, knew it was going to be a really great way to intimately connect with the new place that we would call home as well. So, I saw it as, an opportunity, a challenge. It wasn't so much about this quest to do a sort of triumphant circumnavigation for any real purpose. We weren't really attached to the circumnavigation side of it. We just wanted to experience Tassie. And, Iska and I hadn't done a trip for quite a few years. He's a father of two now. Calypte, he joined us, a number of times to help document the trip. But a way of us to sort of reconnect, and he also had moved down there as well. So we just sort of got carried away with the idea and started preparing for it. And I already had the boat, so I dragged that down with me when we moved, and sort of started, dialing it in and trying to sort of dot the I's and cross the T's and prepare so it would be a safe, fun journey, and that's that's, I guess, sort of how it came around. And then it was time to leave, and we were like, oh shit, we're doing it.
For listeners to better understand the vessel, you said Trimaran, but it's basically two hulls or side holes and then a center hull with a mast and a sail and pedals, right? They're about 18 feet or so.
Yeah, it's a glorified kayak.
Okay.
With armors and anchors. So one main hull, armors and anchors, make it super stable. It's got a single furling mast.
Okay.
Really easy, no boom. Just a main sheet that furls. We both had double kayaks, so you can control them either from forward or aft. Single rudder. Everything on them is, they're not exactly designed for the open ocean, but they're, proved to be quite capable.
Okay.
You can load them up with about 250 pounds, 170 kilos. So we were able to, I carried all the surfing equipment, diving gear, as well as, my personal belongings, change of clothes, had like tent, sleeping bag, all in dry bags. And then food and water we split between each other, safety equipment, flares, EPIRBs, radios, all of that. Iska and I carried on our own each. Then Iska had a Pelican case with camera gear. He had a solar panel for charging. So he had all his camping gear. And we basically were set up to be self-sufficient on the boats for up to a couple of weeks. Longer if we had access to drinking water and food we were getting from the ocean on the trip, fishing and diving. In the days we were living on muesli bars and cans of tuna or whatever, leftovers from the night before. So they're very capable little boats. Like they're designed, like I said, not exactly for the open ocean, but in their design, they're sort of genius things. Were designed to sort of break. Components were designed to break before crucial parts of the boat.
Okay.
So the rudder pins and things are plastic rather than being metals, and so the rudder wouldn't break, the pin would break. And then that's one example for because it was a tandem boat. We had with the pedal, set up, we had a backup of pedals for the empty seat up front. And we made a few little modifications, put a bilge pump each, like a manual bilge pump. We didn't want to have any electronics because it can just be problematic. So, we used our phones as navigation, had a little off-grid a satellite phone. It was mostly coastal sailing. Sometimes we'd be a few miles out to sea.
Okay.
It would just sort of depend on the conditions and the run we had. Everything was planned with a backup and a backup. If we could cover 50, 60 kilometers in a day, then we were ripping. And then, if not, you'd be pedaling for 8 to 10 hours a day and cover 2 miles. So it was a bit of a give and take, but we just had this, our first stint of the trip was 6 weeks nonstop. And for the first day, we had about 8 to 10 hours in the boat. And then we spent 3 nights just to kind of adjust and get settled into our setups. And then from then we left and we went for 5 and a bit weeks nonstop every day from sunrise to sunset, which was a mission. Like, we just had this incredible run of weather, and like with Tasmania, as we're getting to know, that when you've got the good weather, you roll with it and you make the most of it. So we were just sort of, I guess to give you an idea of Tasmania geographically, it's basically an upside down triangle. We launched from the southeast and sailed with the prevailing southwest winds up the east coast, around the tip, the north coast, west along the top of the north coast where you separate, where the Bass Strait separates mainland Australia, Tasmania, and then the west coast, which appeared to be and it was always going to be the most challenging and scary, consequential part of the whole trip. So, it was, we had a bit, a plan for it, but it was just taking each day at a time. You couldn't plan. Safety was front and foremost. Iska had never sailed on his own before. The biggest mission I'd ever done in the boat was, a few hours down the coast on the east coast of mainland Australia. So, we were really thinking that we were going to get a lot more time to kind of plan and get more dial, but it all kind of crept up on us. And then all of a sudden we were leaving going, all right, it's the first time we've jumped in the boats with all our gear and they kind of feel a little heavier and different. And this is it. And I guess we're going now. I guess, there's no turning back.
In hindsight, do you think you were undergunned?
In what way?
I mean, was the plan naive, or do you think, would you have done it differently now with the benefit of hindsight?
Not at all. I think we had a phenomenal run of weather. We waited for a really good window. The forecasting is hard. Like, it's, at the best of times, you can only ever see a few days out, especially down in Tasmania where all those systems come deep from Antarctica out of the roaring 40s. It's notoriously, one of the most treacherous oceans in the world, on the west coast there. So, systems move fast and evolve and change a lot. But we, with the boats, we weren't anchoring overnight. They were light enough. We'd unload all our gear of an evening, pull them up on a beach, tie them off to a tree, or set an anchor in the sand. We would aim to give ourselves ample time of daylight hours to get into safety and somewhere that, that we could find a camp, whether it was pulling the boats up on the rocks and sleeping on the beach or a little grassy knoll. Tasmania is sort of notoriously, a lot of the coastline there is inaccessible by land. So a lot of the scouting we did was sort of on satellite images and just sort of giving ourselves a few options and kind of hoping that we'd be able to sneak in there. And if conditions change and we had to turn around and come back the way we did, we'd, as we're going along the coastline, scout a few places that would, make that a little more manageable. I wouldn't, I often spent hours on the boat when we're sailing, thinking of what is the perfect boat, what would be the perfect boat for this trip. And obviously something a little bit more robust than a plastic sort of kayak that's designed to break in places would be beneficial in a few ways. But I don't know, it was kind of great, the setup. I wouldn't change anything. We did it very, we managed to do, it and survive and without too many sort of hiccups. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think there is a really perfect boat either. So
they all come with, certain benefits and certain risks. Part of the limitation though of the boat is obviously its speed. How did you end up scoring such good surf? I mean, considering that your route is kind of mapped in advance and you're just going by the weather, you can't really target a swell or a condition. So did you have enough grace room in the schedule to where you can kind of hunker down and wait for swells once you're at a good, a known surf spot?
Yeah, that was the other thing. Like, having not spent a lot of time in Tasmania, and the time that we learned was, it's an incredibly challenging place to surf and find waves, especially when you can drive a car 100 kilometers an hour from A to B, let alone in a little boat where you got to land the boat on the beach through the surf. You want to sail on the days where the wind's, in the sort of quadrants behind you. So it's challenge surfing and sailing sound and have, this great relationship in a lot of ways, but it also makes doing the both of them at the same time quite challenging. So yeah, we did get some fun waves along the way that were, not crazy, but I mean, it's just such a sweet reward when you do. And then having, a bit of time at the end of the film to kind of chip away at a few, get a few more surfs under the belt was cool. And great for the flow of that. So it's, when we had the wind and the good conditions, we were sailing. And when we were cooped up, we were looking for waves, more or less,
How much time a day did you spend in a wetsuit? It looks like you were in a wetsuit all day, every day.
Like I said, we were in a wetsuit. Iska and I were both wearing either hooded 5'4", like with all the bells and whistles, the warmest suit we could, or if not a 6 mil wetsuit. I'd say they were these summer, autumn months that we were on the water, so that it was 12 to 15 hours of light a day. And I reckon we were in our wetsuits for 10 of those hours every day. From, basically when you start packing up the tent, you put in the wetty on because you got to pack your clothes in that little dry duffel as well. And then you're in your wetty for the whole day until you basically unpack the tent and set up, drag the boats out of the water and so I'd say pretty much, up to pretty much 10 hours a day for, at least 6 weeks on the first run. And then, we managed to do another couple of week sort of missions once we got to the West Coast, trying to chip away at that too. So it was, many, many hours in the wetsuit.
That's the ultimate advertisement for the suits. The ultimate R&D mission. Did you come back with any new research ideas to give the team?
A little flap, a little zipper down below would have been handy and very practical, but I don't think that's the last place you want to be letting in water seepage when you're surfing, right? Everyone knows that feeling when you're walking into a bit of cold water and it starts trickling in.
It's the worst.
It's the worst. So we're more, as rough as it sounds, we were sitting in puddles of pee at times. There's that out there.
I'm curious about what the objective was with connecting with people that you interviewed throughout the film along the way. How did you select those people?
Yeah, it's there was a lot of conversations and thoughts around the whole thing about one moving to a place a new place that we wanted to learn and grow with, and learn about, and then obviously making a film, speaking about an experience and a place that you haven't really spent much time. So it was really important to me and Iska as well, obviously, that we wanted to speak and learn from, the people that had spent their lives living as Tasmanians and learning about the environment and place. It wasn't for me to go and speak about it. It was just for me to learn and listen. So we were, connected with people that, exactly that. Dave, we had the first person in the film, Scott Bennett. He's an environmental scientist. He works for the Great Southern Reef Foundation, which is a great organisation down in Tasmania, putting, mapping out the Great Southern Reef, which is, surrounds Tasmania and Southern Australia. So from an environmental and science point, it was great to talk to him and learn about Tasmania as this sort of, the temperate reef system that it is. And then also, we met Dave Kiley, fella that spent his lifetime on the West Coast as a commercial fisherman. So he, very much had this very raw, real life experience of growing up there. And then Emma Lee, Indigenous elder and social scientist, she, we connected with her on the West Coast, and she spoke, very, elegantly about, what it means to be a Tasmanian and how important the environment is, and also Richard Flanagan, who we were connected with, a renowned author, but also, he's an incredible amount of research and around Tasmania, and also, he spoke about the salmon industry down there and how important that is to a lot of Tasmanians. That we, I guess, like common sort of thread throughout these people that we spoke to, we're all celebrating the beauty of Tasmania, and it's a celebration of it and why it is what is so important about it, and that's sort of what the film became, is basically a celebration of Tasmania and the natural world and why it's worth protecting and experiencing, so that we can all kind of grow closer, connect deeper with it.
Yeah. I mean, I think it is certainly uniquely beautiful, Tasmania, and maybe exceptionally beautiful, but all of our environments started that way originally. It's just that all of our environments have been, or a lot of our environments have been overdeveloped, and we didn't necessarily get to see them in their prime. So it's great to be able to see Tasmania still thriving in those ways. But I guess maybe not, because the first guy that you interviewed talks about the water is warming, I think he said 4 degrees quicker where they're at than the average ocean temperatures around the world. So it could be that the overdevelopment and pollution and everything happening elsewhere is still encroaching upon them,
Yeah, absolutely. I think, in a place that is sort of so pure, you get to see the change kind of happen for your eyes. There is a lot of conversations around, Tasmania also has like a pretty, prominent forestry and mining industry, and it is very beautiful. It's a very, what I love about Tasmania is it's just this great example of how pure and precious it can be. And then you can see, and hear that, it can also be destroyed, and we are responsible as, humans for that, the decisions and the changes that happen. So, we're all experiencing change, and it is, it's important to sort of educate ourselves and learn about it and speak to the people that have seen it before us. And those conversations were really, highlighted that as well.
I mean, a trip like that has to deepen your environmental stewardship. It's so impactful. And by the way, I thought the people that you interviewed were the highlight of the film, and I feel like you could actually do a series like a film series of you traveling and interviewing people, because each of them were super insightful and super interesting in their own ways.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. They certainly are the backbone of the film, and Tasmanians, are the backbone of Tasmania as well. It's, like I said, we really just wanted to, having just been visitors and moving to a place, it's, and everywhere, I think when you travel through, it's really important to connect and have these conversations with people that have spent their life learning and living in these areas. We learned so much from just those, few people in the film, and they spoke just so, profoundly about Tasmania and their experience, and that's when you listen, and I'm really grateful that we were able to have those conversations with those people and be able to share them in the film, in the context, and show Tasmania in its sort of rawest natural state as well,
Well, that's why I started by asking, how did you pick them? Because they're all bangers. It almost makes me feel like you probably had 6 people and then 4 made the cut for the film. But if you just picked 4 in advance, you did a phenomenal job of picking the 4, because they're also poetic in how they speak,
Yeah, they are. It was, we just we got connected with Scott and Dave, and then, good friend Chris McDonald, who does a lot of the music licensing and works for Need as well. He'd reached out to Emma and Richard as well. So, and then we just sort of started talking, during the film, and our progress of the trip, and met up with them, and shared a lot more conversation beyond, what goes in the film, getting to know these people. And then, asked for a few minutes of their time just to sort of talk, if they could talk about the place, in their own words. So, it's, we just sort of go in and ask them, it's not an interview sort of thing. It's just a conversation and just hearing, about their connection to the place. And then, and that was, their words. Nothing's ever, scripted or anything like that. It's just very sort of pulled out and placed in that, and it was, it's obvious they all just sort of celebrate Tasmania in their own way through their own experiences. They are the backbone, and they are the story of the film. It's
Definitely. Did Iska shoot all that underwater marine stuff himself?
He shot a portion of it, but there was, the Great Southern Reef, Stefan Andrews, he contributed footage. He shot a lot of that as well. Absolutely incredible footage. Some of the stuff under there of the weedy sea dragons and the handfish and those underwater sort of vertebrates and creatures. It's just wild, isn't it? Like, I can't wait to see that on the big screen. It's,
well, I mean, I know that it's a robust and rich marine life, but I was like, if Ishka's doing sailing and filming your surfing and documenting the trip, and then additionally going underwater and getting, are those things just pervasive underwater? I would think that you would have to be a professional and know when and where to go to get those shots. So I would have been amazed if he was pulling it all off.
Yeah. The water clarity down in Tasmania is just sort of second to none. The visibility down there and the abundance of wildlife. I mean, Scott talks about, the Great Southern Reef. It is this huge temperate reef system filled with wildlife, an abundance of wildlife. And it kind of doesn't really get the recognition that somewhere 1/10 of its size, like the Great Barrier Reef, does. So it's this massive interconnected, reef system filled with wildlife. And, the waters are cold down there. So it is a lot less sort of desirable as a tourist and a traveler, to get in and go deep. But, it's really alive and thriving, but it's also, like Scott mentioned, under threat and changing. So yeah, I'm constantly, it's growing up in Byron, we're kind of on the fringe of the barrier, the Great Southern Reef kind of reaches as far north as sort of Yamba, Byron there, and then further south. But above us goes into the reef, or coral reef systems of tropical waters. So for me, moving down to Tasmania and getting to know the underwater world and be amongst the giant kelp and in the water with seals and abalone and crayfish and getting this whole different sort of thriving ecosystem and underwater life is mesmerizing and super intriguing and Iska's the same. Like at times you just underwater in this kaleidoscope of kelp, and he's he captured a lot of that beautifully. So it's a mixture of Iska and Stefan's underwater footage there. It's pretty spectacular, isn't it?
Speaking of Iska's role or various roles on the project, he obviously can't capture everything. Can you tell me about any memorable moments that weren't captured in the film?
I guess to kind of flash on like camera equipment. So for the trip, we carried a couple of GoPros, sort of little action cameras each on the boat, which were the sort of run and gun ones. And then Iska had a little Sony camera in a housing that was in a water housing that was just living on the back of the boat too. Traditionally, Iska we use in Black Magic equipment for the trips, which is a much more sort of robust setup. It takes a bit more time to set up. For the nature of this trip, we just sort of wanted sort of light, easy cameras to operate and get our hands on. I think we ended up with about 18 terabyte of footage at the end of it.
Wow.
There's hundreds and hundreds and thousands of hours going through the footage, and it was something like 20 or 30 timelines that go for 3 or 4 hours each of just select footage. So Iska's going absolutely cross-eyed for months on end, just trying to go through it. And then, how do you pick and choose all of that? There's, I guess, in our films in the past, like there have been a lot more of a sort of fumbling, two mates sort of fumbling their way around, maybe a bit more humor and things, a lot of scenes that still got captured in this film, but it just didn't feel like exactly the right setting. And, you're trying to squeeze all of this into an hour-long film. And, I guess the way the narrative, the story kind of took place, there are a few things that, a few little scenes and scenarios that we were kind of attached. I mean, would have liked to have had in there that didn't make the cut, but it's, as, just sort of fit in with the story and maybe they'll, resurge in years to come.
Deleted scenes.
The deleted scenes, yeah.
What was the most genuinely dangerous moment on the journey? Were there any?
There's a little scene where the mast boot or mast step broke on my boat. I guess for us that was a bit of a close call, like a near miss. Before that, we'd come from an island. We'd been on the water for about 8 hours that day, and we were only a mile or two off landing off a little river that we were going to spend the night. So there was a nice entrance to come in. But the following day, we were about to do the Freycinet Peninsula, which is, inaccessible. A lot of it, a lot of cliffs and open ocean. So I think that was a blessing in disguise when that happened when it did, and it was such a simple fix. It was a simple 10 mil bolt that, thankfully the base didn't get too threaded and we were able to just replace the bolt. We had our good friend Ryan on land with us, following us around for a portion of the trip and communicating via radio and satellite phone. And, we were able to let him know that what had happened, and we were nowhere near towns or, hardware stores or anything. And, we carried a lot of spares and things on with us, but, Murphy's Law, we're not going to have the one thing that breaks. So he was able to help us out and do a run into town And, the next day we were back on our way. But yeah, I mean, you're kind of constantly on edge, not constantly on edge, but constantly kind of planning and foreseeing, if something happened, luckily we had 2 boats. So, and spares on each boat, being 2-seaters, two of the pedaling contraptions, and sailing, spare lines, a tarp as a spare sail if we needed it. On the boat, you've kind of got, I was sort of imagining it as 3 engines. You've got the main sail, like the furling sail is one, you've got the pedals, and you've got an oar as well. So, if you really had to strip it all back, you get rid of all the gear, lighten the load, take the armors and anchors and everything off, and paddle yourself in. So we were really, things could have gone pear-shaped a few times. We were pretty far out there, and Southern Ocean swells and refraction coming off cliffs, and things got kind of a little wild at times. But we had a really lucky run as well. I think a lot of it comes down to luck. And
certainly when you're sailing, I would imagine it does. I think also you showed signs of maturity by avoiding risk, opting to avoid the weather, go upriver at that, at least in one scene in the film, probably more throughout the course of the journey. And then also the treacherousness of the West Coast. You weren't going to try to just force the journey on. You went on land when you needed to.
Yeah, that was it. We were, like I mentioned, we were going hard for the entirety of the East Coast, all of the North Coast. We ripped along the North Coast. We did about 220 nautical miles in 4 days on the boats, which, sunrise, sunset, 50 miles, 70, 80 Ks, more or less, a day, back to back. So it took us a few weeks to get up the East Coast, and then the North Coast we ripped along, and then all of a sudden we're going, oh shit, we're at the West Coast. It's May, June now. The days are getting shorter, and like sure enough, one of the first sort of winter fronts came in, and we were just sort of looking out at the West Coast. First time we'd seen a really wild, scary ocean, and gone, this is that's not really a place for us on our little plastic boats, I don't think. So we took it as an opportunity and went up the Arthur River, which took us, deep inside one of the oldest, rainforests in the world. And that was such a contrast to the weeks prior of, crystal clear waters and white sandy beaches, and all of a sudden we're deep in, ferns and huge old growth trees, and the water in the river was from the tannins, of the oils of the trees coming out, and it was just powerful, and it was the first time we got to slow down in that time too. And with that weather, that front came weather and cold rain, and we were kind of cooped up, and we all of a sudden, like when you're going and you're distracted and you're moving along, you kind of looking forward, and then once, that weather set in and we were kind of, forced to slow down, we started sort of looking back and realized how far away we were from everything, and our families, and it was just, it was, a nice way to kind of stop and slow ourselves down and remind us that, we are not in charge of, of this journey, really. And we got to, give our bodies a bit of a break, and just sort of, hit the reset button. And, we waited about a week or so, hoping to keep kind of chipping away at the West Coast. And we did what we could up a few rivers, and inland water systems. And as we got further down the West Coast, we realised, a really large part of the southwest of Tasmania is completely inaccessible by land. The Southwest National Park, it's, one of it was the place that I was kind of looking the most. I was the most excited about getting to explore and experience, because it is, very few people in the world get to go there and experience that. And the only way to do that is you can either hike in, it's about a week or 10 days walk, or access by a boat. And most boats that go in there are very capable, seaworthy, either, the fishing trawlers or expedition boats. So, I really wanted and hoped that we were going to get to experience more of that, but it was just obvious that, with the timing of things and the weather forecast, that it just wasn't going to be a safe option for us. So, it came to a point where we basically decided to pull the boats out of the water and explore a few of the inland rivers and waterways and lakes, that the West Coast has to offer. And it was kind of like this, again, like a nice reminder that and sort of shift in our kind of perspective on Tasmania, and we got to see these places that we wouldn't normally have seen if we had just stuck to the coast as well. So
Sure.
It was, it was really, wouldn't change it. Would still love to go back and do the Southwest, whether it's on these boats or another boat. But yeah, that was, certainly a very, I guess a pivotal part of the trip as well. And it was right after we'd met with Emma, and she'd, talked to us about the power and nature of, Tasmania and what it means to live there and experience it. And for us, that couldn't have come at a better time.
Totally. It's a great foreshadowing of what was to come.
Yeah.
The music in the films is always so well done. Like, they're so well scored. Can you tell me? And this one is no different. Really phenomenal. But can you tell me about the music?
Absolutely. Yeah. So Headland, Murray Patterson's the headman of Headland. He's just such a genius on all instruments. But, when the band comes together, it's just such beautiful, powerful music. And I think, like before this trip, it was just so, Headland's done a lot of the music for our films over the years, but I feel like Tasmania is just, the dramatic seascapes and landscapes and rawness of Tasmania's natural beauty was just so fitting to the mood and elegance of Headland as well. So it was just, obviously they were going to score the music for it. Working with Murray and the whole band is just such an enjoyable experience. Often Iska will put together, a bit of a body of work, and Muzz will put it on a projector and get the band in, and they'll just start playing and feeling into the music, and then it will take shape. And, but slowly each, the film parts and the songs will evolve. And, the whole film sort of came together like that, where, they've written all original music for the whole film. And I think, you can feel the weight, the sort of romance, the beauty, the rawness of both the music and, the visuals, very, symbiotically. It's, really, really stoked and proud of the music that, that Murray made. And I feel like it just complements it so well. It's, it feels powerful and emotional as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. It complements it very well, and more so than ever, I think. Like, it's always worked well in the films, but Tasmania is more of a character in this film than the location has been a character in the previous films. And they're of course, the location always played a huge role in those films too, but it's like Tasmania just feels uniquer. And I think, the music absolutely represented everything that you said to a different degree.
Yeah. It's going to be, we've just sent the film off for sound design. Obviously the guy that's doing the sound design on the film also did the mastering of Headland's music as well. So it's, he really is emotionally invested in the film as well. And I can't wait, it's like one of the most exciting progresses. You work on the film for so long, and, Iska especially, you lock off the edit, and then we send it away for sound design and color design. And then to get it back at such a different experience getting to watch it, and then obviously getting to put it on the big screen. A cinema sort of setting where you're in a dark room on a big screen and the speakers are all around you. I'm really excited to see the film in that atmosphere. A friend of ours, Regan Martinovich, Dusty Rusty, he did a couple of sort of light-hearted tracks in the film as well. He's another friend down in Tasmania, lives local to us, and there's two of his tracks in there that really light and uplift as well. Not that Murray's music isn't that, but it just sort of just a little bit of a change in pace and feel. So stoked to have a couple of his tracks in there as well.
Great. Yeah, the headland stuff from previous films I've added to my playlists and still listen to them, even though I haven't seen the films in years.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, it is. I mean, the music is such a huge part of these films. It's such an important part. It's like it really takes you into that moment, and like music, it tells stories. So we're hoping to get Murray and the band, when we start touring the film, to play some live sets, to add to the experience, before or after the film. And we've talked, for years about making a film and touring it, to a single track, a 20-minute track that just takes you on a journey, and it's played live with, the surfing and scenery, like projected on a big film, and make it, a really, epic experience.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah, so that's kind of a bit of an idea for future films and that sort of yeah.
Kind of transitioning in, not necessarily away from the film, but into your kind of career. Do you ever think about your career?
I'm always thinking, like, filmmaking is my passion. It's what I love to do. I'm always thinking of ideas of films and journey, adventures and I guess it's hard to see exactly how I want to be surfing my whole life, and I want to be making films my whole life. So I see them working symbiotically, and I think they will, I hope they can continue to evolve and change and become, sort of take their own, continue on their own journey, but also, like I say, sort of evolve and kind of, I think in the past, a lot of these films have kind of chronicled my personal life, but there's a lot, too, through these films that I would like to explore as well. I guess, what do you mean in a way of my, career?
It presents from the outside like you're just living your life. And so I understand that those were objectives, were to surf for a living and to be able to make films for a living. And so you are doing what you are, your career is an accurate reflection of your life. But at the same time, I feel like your profile has grown so much that you have a surprisingly sparse number of partnerships and sponsors that I would think there would be brands approaching you for brand deals. And so, have you actively turned any of those down?
Yeah, there's certainly been quite a few opportunities over the last few years, and I really, in a way, I'm open to conversations and around that and see things evolving. But I very much believe in Need Essentials, and they very much believe in me and the films, and what we have going on now works so well for everyone. And we touched on it earlier about the production and the nature of the films, and the ethos of Need and myself, and we don't want things to become over branded and over sort of in your face. And I think once you get more cooks in the kitchen, things can get a little bit trickier to navigate as well. But I see everything evolving and changing. I think it's important and healthy for things to always be evolving. It's we just sort of take things one step at a time, with the films and sort of what's next. Like with like this last film's taken us, we spent 3 months or so, on the water doing the physical filming part, and it's been nearly a year in post-production, bringing it together. So it's, a huge amount of effort and time, and planning and, editing and bringing all this to life. There's a lot of work that goes in behind the scenes from a lot of people, that makes them come to life. But, I think things are just constantly going to be changing, evolving, and growing as well. I feel like every film we learn something from, and then as time goes past, we grow into different ages and stages and chapters of our lives where maybe there's different stories that we want to tell, or different experience to be had, or different places to sort of see, it's, I guess it's, like I said, it's always sort of evolving.
Yeah. Speaking of changing and aging, how old are you?
35.
How's your body aging and holding up?
My body's feeling great. Very, I mean, I am a notoriously, I don't know if I call it lazy. I probably call it not, because I'm very active and probably more hyper than lazy. But maybe slack's the word on my discipline of exercise. But I live a very active life. My body feels good. Recently been getting into gardening, and we've been sort of building a house, and then that you're like, whoa, all right, I haven't lifted that amount of like sandstone before. There's the lower back feeling a little bit creaky. Maybe I need to roll that one out, but my body's feeling good. Touch wood, hopefully around here. I haven't had an injury in the last, I shouldn't even say it, 10 years or so.
Wow.
I just, my body's feeling good. I've been, this year is probably the least amount I've surfed in my life, ever. Like, Tasmania is a very challenging place to surf. And with this film, we were kind of prioritizing, sailing and, that aspect of it, and surfing kind of came, just found its way, at opportunities, and we tried really hard to get waves, and Tassie's just not a place to surf consistently. It's, very challenging in that aspect. So, I'm looking forward to this new year and just surfing a lot, and working with Simon on some new boards and designs, and putting myself in places where the waves are really good. And, that, myself and family can be, around the ocean surfing as much as possible. But my body's feeling good.
Is there anything that you don't put in your body? Like, is there, in terms of diet, is there anything you avoid?
I try to cut down heavily on caffeine and sugar, and alcohol. I'm not too regimented or strict with my diet. I like to have a very broad diet, but we are growing our own food and like our veggies, and buy as much as we can local, and organic. And then I fish and dive a lot, so I'm eating from the ocean as much as possible, and very conscious of where our food is coming from. And it's important not to be putting too many nasties and artificial things into my body. But I wouldn't say I have a strict diet by any means. We eat as local and healthy as possible, really. It's, I think that's important to sort of clean, healthy living and longevity, everything in moderation, really. Obviously, when you're traveling and moving around, you get less access to good food, or it takes more effort to make food and get your hands on it. So I think just keeping a healthy sort of clean diet that isn't overly excessive.
You mentioned Simon. What boards did you bring on the trip?
I took a 5.8 Trax 20, which was one of the first boards that we, one of the first twin fins that kind of came into the story. And then the other board was a 7.2 Massive, which is kind of been the bread and butter for the sweet spot for the mid lengths for me, and just both two very trusted, known boards. They've been kind of my staple for the last year. The other board I was riding was a remote location. I surfed that at Shippies mostly. That was 6.9, more refined, a bit more rocker. But that board has evolved into that, around that sort of wave, and idea of waves of that kind of consequence and shape. But yeah, like moving into this next year, like I said, I mean, Simon and I are constantly, everything's always evolving with the boards, and we're always talking about ideas, and things to ride. And I've got, this great selection of different boards to ride. But like I said, I hadn't been surfing a lot this year, and then having access and choice of different boards has kind of been confusing in a lot of ways to me. And on those surfs, I'm kind of wondering if, in your head, you're like, oh, should I be riding that other board? Or, should I be, this or that? And he and I have been exploring the idea of just a one board quiver for a year, one or two board quiver, which for me sounds, I love the romantic idea of it. And the practical side is, well, if you break it, then, you got to get the kit out and start patching it up pretty quick, smart. But I just really wanted to strip things back to the essence of surfing, that I don't have to think about it. I want to go surfing and for the board to disappear, and for me just to be not overthinking what I'm riding, and trust the boards, the equipment, what Simon is doing. And we've, just sort of stripping it back and resetting my surfing life in a way. That's what I'm sort of looking forward to this year, is not overcomplicating things, and just, surfing good waves, and surfing consistently, and just having fun.
Yeah. I've seen your name be mentioned in comment sections as somebody who people would like to see in the electric acid surfboard test that Stab Magazine does. Have they ever approached you about that? And would you have any interest in doing something like that?
I did have a message a few years ago from Sam McIntosh. Asked, I don't know if it was directly connected to the electric acid test, but it was basically, would you be up for something along those lines? And look, I'm always open to new things. It kind of, it would be a really great opportunity to try these different boards in good waves and sort of on a few different terms, I would imagine. But I think, there's just such a great abundance of shapers and designs going on out there that, I'm so intrigued by. It would be, I would be open to something like that. It would be fun, and getting the opportunity to kind of connect and learn more about these boards, and designs and philosophies of other shapers. Obviously I know and trust in the relationship that Simon and I have. So, that for me is as solid as a rock. And then, getting the opportunity to try and hear about these other boards and designs and get different feelings out of boards would be something that I would, certainly like to explore. And it's something, with or without that sort of setting and, focus around that series, it's something that I'm constantly thinking about and, keen to explore.
I don't think I've ever seen you ride anything other than Simon's boards in the past decade. Have you, or do you?
There's been a couple of boards sort of come and go through my life that of other shapers and friends that have gifted. So there's absolutely there's been a handful of different boards, either self-shaped or by the shapers, and a few of those have been different construction materials. A couple of years ago, before moving to Tasmania, I started exploring some of the more sort of environmentally friendly materials and different types of construction, methods, with a few different shapers. So that was, really quite intriguing for me. And I never put in custom orders for boards. It was more so, this shaper is on this journey, with these materials and making their designs. And, it might have been a board that they shaped for themselves that they lent me or passed my way to try.
Yeah.
They're definitely, I'm always open, and keen to hear about, people's shapers' experiences in that world. That is their world. They spend so much time there, and I just want to learn more about it and kind of get to, try, everything I can in a way. It's surfing is fun, and it offers these so many different dimensions to it. It would be kind of crazy not to get to explore this from all sort of shapes and sizes and materials and things. I feel like there's so much left to explore in that space.
The other long-term partnership obviously is with Iska. You guys, I don't know how intentional it was to choose a different mode of transportation for each of the films, but you guys have done films by van, motorbike, sailboat, now Trimaran. I may have forgotten other vehicles as well. Is that intentional? And then is there something next in the evolution?
It is intentional. When the first trip we did 10 odd years ago, when we were sitting up around a campfire in sort of remote northwest WA, we were sitting around there, a few months into a trip around Australia, and we were, thinking about the films and travel and exploring different places on different modes of transport. And it kind of clicked about, imagine if this sort of became our lives, and how cool is that, And I feel like each place lends itself to a certain mode of transport. Obviously, New Zealand on motorcycles is, what a great way to experience that, and its winding sort of labyrinth of roads and sort of intricate little corners that you can only access by bike. And then, the sort of Northern Ireland to Africa van road trip, the classic European road trip, and then, sailing, obviously. So each kind of film and journey has lent itself to a different mode of transport. And we've kind of joked about, doing trips on tuk-tuks and walking trips or hitchhiking trips or push bike trips or, it is. I really love the idea of that thread of it. I think it's, it's certainly a way of learning a new skill, bringing in, a new way to travel, and, experience places in different sort of settings,
You'll have to get your pilot's license eventually. Run out of vehicles.
I'm colorblind. I can't really deal with that sort of. It wouldn't end well.
Where else, or where would be a priority that you still want to travel?
I couldn't tell you somewhere that I don't want to travel.
Yeah.
I love traveling. I love what it brings out in us, as people, and what it brings out in, the things we learn and the experiences we have with people along the way. I feel like it's quite easy to be complacent and also easy to be kind of fearful of what is out there in the world. But my experience in the many countries and places that I've been fortunate to travel, and the different cultures and religions and everything, everywhere has been just such a great reminder to me of humanity and the just nature, the good nature of people. It just is, it just becomes I just think such an important way to connect with strangers and people when you're outside of your home and comfort zone, and the goodwill of people helping you out and the relationships and interactions that you have and develop with complete strangers anywhere, everywhere in the world. It just is, just a great reflection of humanity, and I just want to, through the films and travels, keep celebrating that basically, and keep being immersed in that with my family and friends, and I think I hope that with the films that we are able to kind of remind people to get out there and travel and have these experiences as well, and trust in the world and people, and kind of let go of home and that things being in one place. I mean, obviously it's it's a privilege for a lot of people to travel, but I think it's important. Traveling doesn't have to be to go on the other side of the world. It can be a few hours from home to a place you've never been, or anywhere. It's I think it's just such an important way of resetting our personal headspace and just sort of interacting with people on a deeper and a surface level, and just having these these real life experiences and conversations. And it's anything from jumping in your car and going go getting in the van or on the road and camping for a few nights, to a more extensive sort of adventure way out of your comfort zone. I think it's just a great way of interacting with the world on a very neutral place. And if you can keep an open mind, and we can all only grow and learn from the experiences that we have.
That jogs a thought of mine that I had when I was prepping for this that I didn't know how to really put into a question, but I'll just share it with you. From the outset of these films, almost all of them, and even hearing about you moving from Byron to Tasmania, it feels like you are seeking a certain amount of solitude and isolation. But by the end of the film, I feel like you've become more connected, so there's this tension happening when I'm tracking your journey, which is like, this guy's always just trying to like be isolated and get out on his own. But by the end of the film, it's all about connection. It's all about connecting with the people along the way, connecting maybe with yourself along the way too. So, like I said, I didn't really have a question for it, but it was an interesting observation that I've had about you.
Yeah, I think with the films in the past and slow travel and being able to spend time in places, you naturally build connection with the place and the people that you travel through. And then with Tasmania, moving to a new place, trying to mesh in with the community there, try to understand the social and environmental culture and community around that. It's I think community is the biggest thing everywhere we go, right? And as surfers, we are so fortunate to have community all around the world. Every coastal community and place, we have something that we all love and share together. And that is my natural sort of connection to where I go, is surfing and sailing as well. So it is certainly, important to kind of build these, deeper relationships, certainly as you grow older, to kind of travel and, with intention and I guess purpose as well. And I think, with the films too, I really like that we are able to kind of travel and have these experiences, and then with the films be able to kind of raise a little bit of awareness and have these sort of conversations and like I mentioned with the film tours and stuff, we were able to raise some money to help go back to people like Surfrider Foundation who do incredible work for our coastal communities and the Great Southern Reef, which is obviously based in Tassie. So it's nice to not extract just from the places that we go and kind of give back and learn about, I think we have a responsibility for that. And I think, just people in general and as travelers, it's important just to travel with an open mind and learn and connect, with the places that we go. I think that just sort of happens, quite sort of naturally and, as surfers getting to, experience places that are controlled by the that the ocean, really does control the experience we have.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the film's fantastic and I'm excited for people to see it. I know you guys are going to be touring it, so we'll kind of alert people to those dates and places and where they can find them. And then I'll also say, not to make this an overt commercial, but in the time that I've known you guys and Need Essentials, I mean, I think they started just with basically one product line, which was wetsuits. And it's kind of expanded a lot. And I just got an order of trunks in, but I've worn the same trunks from them for almost 10 years. Like I have a few different pairs, so it's not just one pair of trunks, but they're incredible and they last. And so that's kind of built in the same ethos as less is more, because they are simple. There's no bells and whistles, but it's all you need, So I'm a huge fan of, I'm excited to get the new ones too, but I'm a huge fan of what you guys have done and all of it.
Yeah, appreciate you acknowledging that. Like, we at Need Essentials, it's Need is an independent surf company, so run and owned by surfers. Obviously the direct to consumer model, really emphasizes focus on, the time that we can put into developing products that we all care about, and cut out sort of the, all the kind of hype and sort of, unnecessary things that are involved within, industry and creating products that are unnecessary. And, through our journeys, through these trips, we're able to really test the products and believe in the products that we use and, put them through the sort of conditions, all the conditions that are sort of thrown at us. So it really does, we're able to, just be using and making products that we believe in and keeping it, simple in that space and letting them, they naturally do evolve and change. And as materials, and we have access to different materials and components, it's always evolving and the gear is getting better. But yeah, I'm really proud of, what we've been able to create and make and believe in, what we're doing and that we can do it ethically and consciously, and it's not just contributing more crap to the world. It's really proud to be working with Need.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And I've seen the product line has expanded quite a bit to, outerwear, clothing, or not outerwear, but clothing outside of the ocean and stuff like that. So it's killer to see. And stoked on the new film, man. Congrats.
Yeah, we'll be spending a bit more time over in the States. So I'll hit you up. It'd be good to catch up. Yeah, cool.
All right, awesome, man. Thanks.
All right, good chatting, David.
All right, see you later.
See you, mate. Bye-bye.
Surf Splendor.